The champagne glasses froze mid-toast as the first guest collapsed. A woman in a blue dress clutched her throat, eyes wide with confusion before crumpling to the polished gymnasium floor. Moments later, a man stumbled, knocking over the punch bowl as he fell. Screams erupted across the decorated hall of Greenwood High School. "Call an ambulance!" someone shouted as three more former classmates dropped to their knees, faces contorting in pain. The reunion banner, Class of '98, together again, swayed gently above the unfolding nightmare. Emergency lights flashed through windows as desperate attendees carried friends outside, unaware they were already beyond saving. How does a woman transform from victim to executioner? For 25 years, Elise Lockwood moved through life methodically, earning degrees, building a respectable career in food science, paying taxes. Neighbors described her as pleasant but private. Colleagues praised her attention to detail. Not once did anyone suspect that beneath her composed exterior lay an architect of vengeance. Every chemistry experiment, every toxicology journal, every weekend spent in her home laboratory, all were pieces of a pattern invisible to everyone but her. What psychological tipping point turns decades of quiet suffering into calculated mass murder? And more chillingly, how many others walk among us, waiting? 8 former classmates dead, 14 hospitalized, a community fractured by questions no one wants to answer. But beyond the immediate horror lies a more profound darkness, the realization that justice systems fail quietly, that trauma compounds silently, and that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the prey who learned to hunt. 6 months before the tragedy, Elise Lockwood volunteered to coordinate the 25-year reunion. She seemed so eager to help, recalled Principal Matthews, said she wanted to give back to the community. With meticulous planning sheets and color-coded timelines, Elise impressed the committee with her organizational skills. Her suggestions were practical, budget-conscious, and delivered with quiet confidence that inspired trust. She selected the caterer, designed the floor plan, and personally handled the guest list, checking names with particular attention. Former classmates barely recognized the once shy student now commanding meetings with quiet authority. Her transformation was remarkable. The awkward teenager, now a poised professional with 3 degrees in biochemistry and food science. "I hardly knew her in high school," Monica Delgado admitted later. "She was just there until she wasn't." No one questioned why someone who left school before graduation would care so deeply about a reunion. On reunion night, Elise moved through the gymnasium like a ghost, clipboard in hand, earpiece connecting her to catering staff. She adjusted centerpieces with gloved fingers, inspected serving temperatures, and personally approved each platter before it left the kitchen. When kitchen staff attempted last-minute substitutions for the signature sauce, she intervened firmly. "The recipe must be followed exactly," she insisted, her voice leaving no room for debate. Between tasks, she photographed the event with careful precision, capturing faces that would soon contort in agony. Her camera lens lingered on specific tables, Monica's table, documenting final moments with clinical detachment. When Monica embraced her with air kisses, Elise's smile never reached her eyes. "You look exactly the same," Monica laughed, not recognizing the calculated insult hidden in her words. Elise merely nodded, watching Monica return to her circle of friends. A server noticed Elise's hand trembling slightly before steadying. In the bathroom, she spent 3 minutes staring at her reflection, whispering something inaudible. When Victor Marlowe asked about her life after high school, her rehearsed response contained precise details but revealed nothing personal. Have you ever wondered about the quiet classmates who disappeared from your memories? The ones whose names you've forgotten while they remember every word you spoke to them? Comment below if you've ever reconnected with someone from your past only to discover they remembered a completely different version of your shared history. Subscribe to explore how everyday encounters can create wounds that fester for decades without our knowledge. Elise entered Greenwood High with perfect grades and imperfect social skills. Teachers praised her laboratory work while classmates avoided partnering with her. "Too intense," they whispered when she corrected their chemistry equations. Her thrift store clothes and government-subsidized lunches marked her as different in a school where status hinged on brand names. During lunch periods, she ate alone, reading toxicology textbooks borrowed from the county library. By sophomore year, she'd mastered the art of invisibility, taking routes through hallways where she wouldn't be noticed, speaking only when called upon, her achievements accumulating in silence as her isolation deepened. Monica Delgado ruled Greenwood's social hierarchy with calculated precision. Her inner circle, Victor Marlowe, Liana Brooks, and 5 others who would eventually attend the fatal reunion, controlled which parties mattered, whose relationships deserved acknowledgement, whose existence warranted recognition. Their laughter echoed through hallways like a warning system. They occupied the central cafeteria table, a geography of power every student recognized. Teachers unconsciously deferred to them, overlooking minor infractions, laughing at their jokes. They weren't just popular, explained a former classmate. They defined reality for everyone else. If Monica decided you didn't matter, you ceased to exist in our world. Junior year chemistry lab, Elise's award-winning project mysteriously contaminated the night before state competitions. Monica's group won instead. When Elise reported the tampering, her lab notebook mysteriously disappeared. The investigation concluded with insufficient evidence. The Valentine's Day prank, Elise received elaborate flowers and a love letter from secret admirer Jason Moore, Monica's cousin visiting from college. She spent weeks preparing for their meeting at the spring formal, buying a dress with her savings. When she arrived, Monica's group waited with cameras. "Did you actually think he'd be interested in you?" Their laughter followed her into the parking lot as she walked home alone. Graduation week, Elise's acceptance to Cornell's biochemistry program appeared on the school bulletin board with a crude anatomical drawing. That afternoon, her research journal, containing 2 years of detailed notes, vanished from her locker. Without it, her scholarship evaluation committee questioned her commitment. The scholarship was revoked. During Elise's final semester, she submitted an essay analyzing historical poisoning cases with mathematical precision that disturbed her English teacher, who nevertheless gave her an A for thorough research. When she stopped participating in science club, the faculty advisor attributed it to senioritis, rather than noting her new interest in botanical toxins. School counselors, overwhelmed with college applications, missed 6 canceled appointments. Her mother, working double shifts, didn't notice the growing collection of chemistry equipment in their basement. When Elise withdrew from school 3 weeks before graduation, the administration processed her paperwork without follow-up, her absence at commencement unremarked. The day Elise left Greenwood, she didn't look back. She carried no yearbook filled with empty signatures, no prom photos, no mementos of adolescence. Instead, she packed something more enduring, a mathematical equation of pain multiplied by time, solving for the variable of justice that would take 25 years to calculate. With her scholarship lost, Elise worked 3 years at a chemical supply company before affording community college. Her path to legitimacy was methodical: associate's degree, transfer to State University, graduate studies at MIT. Her doctoral dissertation on molecular gastronomy and food safety won industry accolades. By age 35, Dr. Lockwood had established herself as an authority on food preservation and safety protocols. Her research papers were cited in regulatory guidelines. Pharmaceutical companies sought her consultation. Conference organizers requested her keynote addresses. The awkward teenager had vanished, replaced by a composed professional whose credentials opened doors at research facilities, handling compounds most scientists couldn't name. Elise's legitimate research focused on detecting contamination in food supply chains. This position granted her access to databases documenting rare botanical compounds and their effects on human physiology. Colleagues noted her particular interest in naturally occurring toxins that mimicked common illness symptoms. She was fascinated by compounds that could be mistaken for ordinary food poisoning, remembered Dr. Jensen, her former department head. Her weekend hobby of cultivating rare plants raised no suspicions among neighbors. The specialized equipment in her home laboratory seemed appropriate for a dedicated scientist. When she published a groundbreaking paper on a toxin derived from an uncommon South American plant, documenting its precise degradation rate in the human digestive system, the scientific community praised her thoroughness, never questioning why she had mapped exact onset times for symptoms. Monday through Friday, Dr. Lockwood taught graduate students and led research teams. Evenings and weekends, she meticulously documented her progress, creating an undetectable poison. Her professional reputation provided perfect cover. Chemical orders that might raise questions for others were routine for someone in her position. Her home laboratory contained two distinct sections, one for legitimate research, another hidden behind a false wall in her basement. There, she tested minute doses on laboratory mice, recording their reactions with scientific precision. Her calculation was elegant. Create a compound that would trigger symptoms familiar to medical professionals, but contain markers that would degrade within hours of ingestion. Year by year, she refined both her formula and her patience. When colleagues commented on her dedication to work, they mistook obsession for professional commitment. No one recognized the cold mathematics of vengeance driving her research. 2 years before the reunion, Elise published research on temperature-sensitive compound activation in food preparation, essentially a blueprint for her method. She began tracking her former classmates through social media, noting health conditions that might influence individual reactions to her compound. She documented Monica's shellfish allergy, Victor's recent heart medication. When the preliminary reunion announcement appeared online, Elise immediately volunteered as coordinator. Her eagerness seemed touching, the Alumni Association president recalled later. She wanted everything to be perfect. Now we understand why. How many dedicated professionals in your life might be channeling pain into purposes you can't see? Could you distinguish between healthy ambition and calculated obsession? Comment below about times you've misjudged someone's true motivations. Don't forget to like this video if you've ever wondered about the fine line between determination and fixation. Subscribe to explore more cases where extraordinary talent masked extraordinary darkness, hiding in plain sight. The official reunion planning began with an email chain. When the original coordinator stepped down citing work commitments, Elise immediately volunteered. "I have event planning experience," she wrote, attaching her impressive CV. Committee members welcomed her expertise with relief. During Zoom meetings, she appeared professional and accommodating, never revealing her personal connection to the decisions she guided. She suggested the original high school gymnasium as the venue, for authenticity and budget reasons, and recommended a local catering company where she had contacts. Each suggestion was accepted without question. No one noticed how her proposed floor plan positioned certain tables near specific air ducts. Elise created a database of her former classmates, categorizing them by severity of past offenses. Primary targets: Monica, Victor, and Liana, the core group responsible for her most painful memories. Secondary targets: those who enabled them through silent complicity. Her research was comprehensive. Medical records accessed through university database credentials, financial situations analyzed through public records, family connections mapped through social media. She calculated table assignments based on relationship patterns unchanged since high school. The dose calibrations accounted for body weight, alcohol consumption, and pre-existing health conditions. Her compound would affect everyone differently. Monica would experience respiratory distress, first due to her asthma history. Victor's heart medication would accelerate his symptoms. The timeline was predicted down to the minute, each target suffering mathematically optimized. Monica arrived in a designer dress, now a marketing executive with the same practiced laugh that once echoed through school hallways. Her Instagram showcased charity galas and European vacations, her perfect life professionally filtered. Victor had transformed from baseball captain to investment banker, his handshake firm as he distributed business cards between reminiscences. Liana, now a real estate mogul, wore success like armor, her conversation dropping casual mentions of her vacation home and children at private school. None recognized the significance when Elise personally delivered their welcome packages. "Customized for our VIP attendees," she explained, including special drink tickets that ensured they'd consume precisely what she intended. Have you ever Googled the names of those who made school unbearable? Do you feel vindicated when they failed or uneasy when they flourished? The digital age makes tracking former tormentors temptingly easy, but at what psychological cost? Comment below if you've ever reconnected with someone who hurt you in school. Would you accept their apology? Or like Elise, do you sometimes imagine scenarios where they face consequences for past cruelty? Like this video if you've ever wondered whether true redemption is possible for those who cause lasting pain. In the kitchen, Elise supervised the final preparation of her specially designed menu. The centerpiece was a delicate sauce accompanying the main course, a reduction requiring precise temperature control. It needs to reach exactly 63 degrees Celsius, she instructed the head chef, who nodded at her expertise. When the staff stepped away for their break, she added the final component from a vial kept in her pocket, an odorless, colorless compound that dissolved instantly. She tasted a minuscule amount from her finger, nodding with scientific satisfaction. The compound would activate fully upon contact with stomach acid. She labeled each serving tray with table numbers, ensuring precise distribution. The compound Elise developed represented her life's hidden work, a molecule that remained inert until specific conditions were met. Its brilliance lay in its time-release mechanism. The toxin's molecular structure contained a synthetic binding agent that prevented detection by taste or smell. Upon ingestion, the compound remained dormant for approximately 45 minutes, long enough for service to conclude and for victims to attribute their symptoms to natural causes rather than the food itself. The binding agent dissolved gradually when exposed to digestive enzymes, releasing the active compound in measured stages. First came mild discomfort, indistinguishable from indigestion. Next, accelerated heart rate and respiratory changes, easily confused with anxiety or alcohol effects. Finally, the compound attacked the central nervous system, causing paralysis beginning in the extremities and moving inward. The delayed reaction ensured Elise could observe the effects while maintaining plausible separation from their cause. Medical testing would detect only compounds resembling common food poisoning. Monica noticed first a flush spreading across her chest during the dessert course. "Is it hot in here?" she asked, fanning herself with the program. 40 minutes after consumption, she excused herself to the restroom, her movements already less coordinated than her 2 glasses of wine would explain. Victor clutched his water glass tightly, his banker's composure fracturing as he tugged his collar loose. "Something's wrong," he muttered, blinking rapidly as his vision blurred. His dinner companion attributed his distress to his heart condition. Liana stood to make a toast and faltered mid-sentence, her champagne glass slipping from suddenly numb fingers. The shattering crystal drew attention as she collapsed. Across the room, similar scenes unfolded at calculated intervals. A woman in accounting stumbled toward the exit. The former quarterback vomited violently. Guests at untargeted tables watched in confusion before recognizing the pattern of distress spreading through specific social circles. Emergency calls flooded dispatch as symptoms accelerated. Guests trampled centerpieces rushing toward fallen friends. "She can't breathe," someone shouted near Monica's table. Medical training from various attendees proved inadequate against the unknown agent. A doctor attempted CPR on Victor as his pulse faded. "This isn't normal food poisoning," she announced, searching frantically for signals of allergic reaction. Ambulances arrived 14 minutes after the first collapse. Paramedics found a scene resembling a mass casualty event, bodies contorted across tables and floors, conscious victims describing identical progression of symptoms. Throughout the chaos, Elise moved with clinical precision, appearing to assist while documenting results. She held Monica's hand, checking her pulse with professional concern, while cataloging her dilated pupils and labored breathing. "Help is coming," she assured victims, her voice steady as she witnessed exactly what her research had predicted. When questioned later, witnesses described her as remarkably composed and the only one who seemed to know what to do. The gymnasium ventilation system circulated air irregularly, affecting symptom intensity in different areas. One victim had recently returned from international travel. The catering company had received a health code violation 6 months prior. A disgruntled former employee had threatened their reunion online. The school itself was scheduled for environmental testing the following month. The gymnasium became a sealed crime scene by midnight. Hazmat suits replaced formal attire as chemical detection equipment scanned surfaces for known toxins. Initial blood work from victims showed contradictory markers, symptoms suggesting common food poisoning, but progression too rapid, too targeted. Medical examiners noted unusual crystalline formations in tissue samples that matched no known pathogen database. We're seeing unprecedented receptor blocking at cellular levels, the lead toxicologist reported. The CDC mobilized their chemical emergency team as theories multiplied. Contaminated ingredients, accidental chemical exposure, airborne pathogen. Local authorities questioned catering staff first. Their alibis confirmed through timestamped security footage. Kitchen samples tested negative for common contaminants. The investigation stalled until a laboratory technician noticed a pattern. All severely affected victims had consumed the signature sauce. Advanced spectrometry identified molecular components unknown in food science, but documented in obscure botanical research papers. The compound contained modified plant alkaloids that evaded standard detection protocols. Its structure revealed sophisticated chemical engineering, not an accident, but precision design. This required advanced knowledge of both biochemistry and human physiology, explained Dr. Hendricks, the FBI's forensic chemist. The compound was engineered to metabolize at specific rates depending on body chemistry. It's unlike anything in our database. Analysis revealed the compound's source, a rare South American plant cultivated only in specialized laboratories. Purchase records for botanical specimens narrowed potential creators to 7 researchers nationwide. When investigators cross-referenced academic backgrounds with Greenwood High alumni, only one name appeared: Dr. Elise Lockwood, whose published work contained theoretical frameworks matching the toxin's molecular architecture. The search warrant for Elise's home revealed a laboratory behind a bookcase in her basement. Agents discovered research journals spanning 25 years, chemical formulas evolving alongside detailed notes about her former classmates. The most recent volume contained precise calculations of dosages based on estimated body weights and medical histories. Digital forensics uncovered search histories for Monica Delgado's shellfish allergy, Victor Marlowe's heart medication, and detailed maps of the high school's ventilation system. Sophisticated encryption protected files labeled by victim names, each containing decades of social media surveillance, employment records, and family information. Most damning was a document titled Completion Parameters, a checklist defining success through specific physical responses she intended to witness. Each victim had a designated observation priority, with Monica's suffering allocated the most detailed metrics. The document included a note: 25 years of preparation for 4 minutes of recognition, fair exchange. Analysis of security footage showed her watching Monica's face as symptoms began, the moment her former tormentor realized who was responsible. Criminal psychologists classified Elise's case as extraordinary for its combination of traumatic motivation and methodical execution. Unlike impulsive revenge killings, her decades-long patience indicated a profound psychological anchoring to past trauma. Her journal entries evolved from emotional reactions to clinical observations, emotion gradually replaced by scientific precision. She didn't snap, explained forensic psychologist Dr. Michaels. She calculated. Each chemical refinement symbolized control she never had as a teenager. The investigation uncovered neuroimaging studies among her research, papers analyzing how trauma reshapes brain architecture. Her margin notes suggested she viewed her own psychological damage as a measurable quantity, deserving proportional response. Justice to Elise was a mathematical equation finely balanced. Oak Ridge divided along invisible lines as news spread. Outside the courthouse, opposing groups gathered daily, one demanding maximum sentencing, another carrying signs reading, "Failed by the system." Local newspapers published opposing editorials. Parents demanded school policy reform, while administrators denied responsibility for events decades past. Former teachers struggled with guilt over what they'd missed. The waitress at the local diner admitted, "Part of me understands why she did it." When reporters pressed for clarification, she looked away. "I was bullied too." Churches held prayer vigils for victims, while psychology forums analyzed the case as evidence that wounds without witnesses still bleed. The community discovered no vocabulary existed for this particular brand of moral complexity. 3 surviving members of Monica's former group requested private meetings with prosecutors. "I don't remember doing those things to her," one admitted, voice breaking. "But that doesn't mean I didn't." Hospital interviews revealed fractured memories. Adults confronting teenage selves they preferred to forget. "We were cruel," acknowledged a survivor with permanent nerve damage. Not just teenagers being teenagers, deliberately cruel. Another requested her high school journals, reading them with growing horror at her younger self. Liana's husband discovered his wife's handwritten list of elimination targets from senior year. Classmates systematically excluded from social events. Elise's name appeared first, accompanied by crude annotations. "I married someone capable of calculated cruelty," he realized. "Adolescent trauma rewires developing brains," explained neuropsychologist Dr. Levine. "The chemistry of humiliation creates pathways that can solidify into permanent architecture." Research shows bullying victims experience physical pain responses when recalling past incidents, even decades later. What appears as disproportionate response actually reflects accurate psychological accounting, noted trauma specialist Dr. Rivera. Society trivializes teenage cruelty while expecting victims to move on without resources or recognition. Studies now link childhood social trauma with altered immune function, cardiovascular health, and decision-making pathways throughout adulthood. How accurately do you recall your teenage impact on others? Would you recognize yourself in someone else's trauma narrative? Comment below if you've ever apologized for behavior you didn't remember, or wished for apologies that never came. Like this video if you believe schools need better intervention systems for bullying. Subscribe to explore more cases where past actions create unforeseen consequences, and the complex question of who deserves forgiveness when wounds run soul deep. The courthouse overflowed daily as Dr. Elise Lockwood sat motionless at the defense table, her expression analytical rather than remorseful. The prosecution presented her journals as evidence of unprecedented premeditation, while her defense team argued diminished capacity from untreated psychological wounds inflicted during critical developmental stages. Expert witnesses from both sides agreed on one point. Her case represented uncharted territory in criminal psychology. Outside, media outlets broadcast competing narratives, calculating monster versus traumatized victim. 3 documentaries began production before testimony concluded. Online forums debated justice versus vengeance. Former Greenwood students testified about witnessing her humiliation, their adult faces now creased with belated guilt. "I remember laughing," one admitted. "I never considered it might matter 25 years later." Throughout witness accounts, Elise watched with the same detached interest she'd once directed at laboratory experiments. The jury deliberated for 6 days before returning their verdict, guilty on 8 counts of first-degree murder, 14 counts of attempted murder. As the judge delivered 8 consecutive life sentences, Elise's expression never changed. Her only statement, "The experiment concluded as hypothesized." Families of victims found no closure in the verdict. "Nothing balances this equation," said Victor's widow. Monica's parents requested private meetings with school administrators to discuss their daughter's behavior records. Survivors formed support groups that evolved into advocacy organizations. Several attempted to visit Elise in prison, seeking answers or offering forgiveness. She declined all requests, stating through her attorney that the research phase has concluded. Within a year, Greenwood High implemented comprehensive anti-bullying protocols with psychological support systems. Science classes now include ethics components, emphasizing the human impact of research. 3 states passed Lockwood laws requiring schools to document and address bullying incidents with mandatory follow-up. Psychology departments nationwide incorporated the case into curriculum. Research grants funded studies examining long-term trauma responses from adolescent social rejection. Unexpectedly, chemistry departments revised security protocols for laboratory access and chemical acquisitions. The most profound change emerged quietly. Students began reporting bullying not just of themselves, but of others. "I remember thinking someone should have helped her," explained one teenager. "Now I understand that someone was everyone." What memories are you carrying that might be someone else's defining trauma? What moments from your past might eventually demand resolution? Every human connection creates ripples we rarely track to their conclusion. Subscribe to True Crime Scene Insider for more explorations of how ordinary moments can birth extraordinary consequences. Hit that notification bell to join our community discussing the fine line between victim and perpetrator, justice and revenge. Comment below. What childhood experience still shapes your adult decisions? The past never truly disappears. It just waits for recognition.